Let's talk about our style options for Tamarack. There's so many options included in this pattern, and it's such a fun pattern. There are long sleeve, short sleeve, you can do a hood or a neckband, there's color block options, there's the bias binding, there's shoulder flounces, you can do an optional waistband, or you can just hem it. So many options included, and it's a great pattern for everyone. So once you have those options that you are going to do, you get to pick fabrics. For this pattern, the recommended fabrics are a 50% four-way stretch knit, like cotton lycra, French terry, bamboo lycra, brushed poly, things like that. As far as the ruffles and the bias binding for this pattern, it's always better to use a lighter weight drapey fabric for those. It will just come together so much nicer, and it won't be as bulky and it won't be as heavy if you do the ruffles on the hood. Now, fabrics. I'll go ahead and show you what I chose. I went ahead and ordered from our fabric sponsor, which they have so many amazing fabrics in their shop for options. But my favorite thing about this shop is their panels. They have such adorable panels. And the good thing about Tamarack is it has the perfect bodice for panels. So I went ahead and got a French terry panel. I got French terry for my main fabric. And then I went ahead and got a double brush poly for my ruffles. So that will be really nice. It's a nice thinner fabric that will be great for my ruffles. So once you have your fabrics all picked out, go ahead and get your pattern pieces printed or project your pattern and get all of your pattern pieces cut out, ready to go. We are going to be constructing our hoods. If you are doing a hood option, this is for you. The pieces that you will need for today are, you will need a hood main. You will need 2 pieces. Here's my hood main. I cut out 2 pieces for that. You will need your lining, and you will need 2 pieces for that. And then if you are doing the ruffle option, you will need the ruffle piece cut out as well. Now, I already have my ruffle piece prepped. I just put it wrong sides together, matching up the edges, and gave it a good press. You will also need, if you're doing the ruffles, it's recommended, it's completely optional, but it is recommended that either you use a thin piece of interfacing or the wash away hem tape. I have some of the Wonder Tape here just to place the ruffles on the edge and keep it in place, and it'll also keep it from stretching while you are constructing the hood. Now, the first things we are going to do is get your hood pieces. I have my main, and put it right sides together, matching up the edges. Pin or clip it in place, and then take it to your serger, your sewing machine, and you are going to sew along the curved edge. You will do the same thing with the lining. Put it right sides together, match up the edges, pin or clip it in place, and then sew or serge along the curved edge. Now, with my hood pieces sewn together, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruffle piece. I did not cut the 2 pieces. I ended up cutting it on the fold and then removing the seam allowance from my piece. If you cut the 2 ruffle pieces that are on the pattern, you will need to put it right sides together, match up the edge, put it right sides together, and then sew or serge along the edge to connect the 2 pieces. Then once you do that, you can follow along with what is next. Like I had previously said, I went ahead and prepped my piece. So after that, you will put it wrong sides together and matching up the raw edges and give it a good press. After that, we are going to take it to our sewing machine and we are going to stitch 2 rows of gathering stitches all the way down your entire ruffle piece. You are going to go over and do 1 at 1/4, and then you're going to do 1 at 1/8. I have my 2 rows of gathering stitches on my ruffle piece. The next thing I am going to do is I am going to take my main hood piece, match up the center of my ruffle piece with the center of my hood. And then once you have the center points matched up, pull your gathering threads until your ruffle piece is the same length as the hood. I went ahead and pulled my gathering threads all the way to where my ruffles are the same length as my hood now. I took mine off because something I do with ruffles, just kind of a little tip, is anytime I do any type of gathering or ruffles, I take it to my ironing board and I give it a good press. Let's see if you can see it. That way everything is really nice and neat once it is attached, and everything stays in place where it's supposed to be. So I always like to give my ruffles a good press before attaching it to anything. Completely optional, not something you have to do, but it makes the end product a lot nicer. Next thing you're going to do, you are going to either take your interfacing or your tape and put it along the edge of your hood. And then once you have it along the edge of your hood, you are going to take your ruffle piece and put the ruffle piece on the edge of the main. Once you have your ruffle on your main, it's going to go on the right sides of your main. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. It's going to go on the right sides of the main. You will take it to your sewing machine and baste it in place. I'm not going to baste mine in place because I use the tape, and also I don't want to give it any reason to stretch out at all because of with the ruffles and everything going on here. Trying to give the least amount of stretch as possible. That way it doesn't look really stretched out and awkward at the end. So once the ruffle is basted on, or you have your ruffle in place on your main, you will take the lining of your hood and place it right sides together with the main of the hood. Now, if you are just doing a hood without ruffles, you can completely skip over everything we did with the ruffles pieces, and you will just start from here, and you will take your main fabric, put it right sides together with your lining, match up the top center seams of the front part of the hood, and then line it up and match up the raw edges all the way down. If you're doing the ruffle will be sandwiched in between the mane and the lining of your hood. Continue matching up the raw edges and pin or clip it in place. Once everything is pinned or clipped in place, take it to your sewing machine or your serger and go ahead and sew it in place. Now that I have my front part of my hood all stitched together, I'm going to turn it right sides out. Look how nice and neat those ruffles are. So turn it right sides out. Give the front portion a good press, and then optional, I'm going to do it, it's best to do it if you did do the ruffles, is top stitching. So I'm going to give it a good press, and then I am going to top stitch along the front edge, all the way along the hood. Once you have your hood turned right sides out, you have your hood top stitched. The next thing we are going to do is overlap the front pieces by an inch. Once it's overlapped, pin or clip it in place, and then take it to your sewing machine and baste it in place. After basting it in place, your hood is good to go and ready to be attached. Depending on which option you chose, if you're just doing the simple bodice, you don't have much to do today. If you chose to do the color block bodice, that's what we will be working on today. I'm doing a solid back. If you chose to do the color block back will be the same concept as the front that we are doing. And then I chose to do the color block front. So I have my front pieces cut out. And then I am also going to do the bias binding across the front. So I have this piece cut out. And then I am also going to do the shoulder flounces. So I have those pieces cut out as well. Once you have all of your pieces together, the first thing we are going to do, if you decided to do the bias binding, we are going to take our piece and we are going to put it wrong sides together, fold it all the way down, matching up the raw edges, and then take it to your ironing board and give it a good press all the way down the strip. I gave my piece a good press all the way down. The next thing I'm going to do, just to make it easier, is I'm going to find the middle and I'm going to cut it in half. Then match it up on the top part. The instructions tell you to leave a 1-inch overhang. So you will match up the raw edges of the bias tape with the raw edges of the top part of your panel or your fabric if you're not using a panel. Once you have that and you have about an inch overhang on each side, take your top piece and you will match up the raw edges. on your top piece. Then pin or clip it in place. If you want to make things easier so nothing moves, you can use a little bit of glue on the washable glue sticks or use the tape, keep everything in place. Once you have the top part done, we are going to do the same thing to the bottom. Once you have both pieces pinned or clipped in place, take it to either your serger or your sewing machine and sew along each diagonal line. For this step, you will be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, not the normal 3/8. This one we will be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have my color block pieces all sewn together on the top and the bottom. And like I said, if you're doing it on the back, it's the same concept as if you were color blocking the back pieces as well. Once I have these sewn in place, I'm going to take it to my ironing board and I'm going to give each of these a good press, and then I'm going to take it to my cover stitch and go ahead and top stitch these pieces down. I'm going to make sure the bias tape that we have on each side is facing towards the panel. I went ahead and gave it a good press and top stitched each side. Now, if you are just doing that and you are not adding the shoulder flounces, you are done for the day. And you have your back piece, you have your front piece. If you did the color block back, just do the same thing with the color block back as you did with the front. And you are all set for today. Now, if you are doing the shoulder flounces, that is what we will do next. I have both of my pieces. Optional, you can either do a rolled hem along the edge of these, or you can leave them raw. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine raw on both sides. Then you will take the inside curved edge. Let me see if I can show you a little bit better. So the inside curved edge is what we are going to match up along the arm. The widest part will be at the top, and we are going to take the inside curve and match it up with the raw edges here. Starting at the top, continuing all the way down and pin or clipping it in place. Something to note with these as well, they will not go all the way to the side seam. So don't try to stretch it to make it fit. It will not go all the way, it's not meant to go all the way to the side. Then continue with the other side. Once both sides are pinned or clipped in place, go ahead and baste both sides using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once the sides of the flounces are basted in place, go ahead and line up the top with the raw edge of the neckline. And then we are going to baste that in place using a 1/4 inch seam allowance as well. Do it for both sides. I went ahead and basted the top of those as well. And that is it for today. Our bodices are all finished and we are ready to attach our sleeves. The first thing you're going to need is your front bodice, your sleeve pieces. I have my 2 sleeves cut mirror. Make sure when you are cutting out your pieces, you do your little notches. It will make things a lot easier to know which side goes front, which side goes back, because the pieces can look very similar. So make sure you cut out those little markings and those little notches. I also have my back piece. Those are the pieces you will need for today. To start, I'm going to take my front piece. I know this side is the front because I typically just mark the front. That way I know that's the front and I don't mix up the front or the back at all. So I am going to go ahead and match up my first sleeve. And then pin or clip it in place. And repeat with the other side. Once you have both pieces pinned or clipped in place, take it to your serger or your sewing machine and sew both sides. I have both of my front ones sewn in place. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my back piece, lay my back piece right sides up. Then I am going to take the sleeves and I'm going to match up the back with the back bodice. Match up along the arm, pin or clip it in place. And repeat for the other side. Once both are pinned or clipped in place, take it to your serger or your sewing machine and sew in place. I have the back of my sleeves sewn in place. The next thing we need to do is to sew up our side seams. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to match up the seams that are right in the armpit. I always match those ones up first, pin or clip it in place, then I match the ends. The end of the sleeve. Then continue pinning or clipping all the way down and repeat with the other side. Once you have both of your sides and your sleeves pinned or clipped in place, take it to your serger or your sewing machine and go ahead and sew it in place. I have both of my side seams completely sewn up. Now it's completely optional, up to you if you'd like to give those seams a good press. You will hear me say to give things a good press multiple times throughout videos because it's just habit for me. I press everything. I feel like it gives the finished product a lot cleaner finish and nicer look. I'll go ahead and turn it right sides out. And there you go. We are ready to attach our bands, our cuffs, and our hood. Today we're attaching our hood, our waistband, and our cuffs, and then we are finished. So I have my hood all prepped and ready to go. I have my bodice piece all prepped and ready to go. And then I have my two cuffs and I have my waistband. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to prep our cuffs and our waistband. So go ahead and put your cuffs. I iron mine before I start doing anything, so I'm going to go ahead and do that first. I put them wrong sides together, take them to the ironing board, give them a good press. That way it just folds back in place nicely and neatly after we sew the ends together. So I'm going to do that and I will be right back. Okay, I went ahead and ironed my cuff pieces and my waistband. I put them wrong sides together, ironed them. That way I have a nice crease that will make them fold nice and easy when we are done. For our cuffs and our waistband, go ahead and match up the short ends right sides together. Pin or clip it in place on all of them. And the waistband, do the same thing. Once you have them all clipped or pinned in place, take it to your serger or your sewing machine. And we are going to either sew or serge along each side that you clipped or pinned. Okay, I serged along each side. Now I'm going to start with the cuffs. I'm going to go ahead and turn them right sides out. This is where that memory crease kind of comes into play and helps a little bit, because it automatically folds right where I had ironed previously. Now the second cuff, go and put it right sides out, and the waistband. Now for the waistband, we are going to mark the quarter points. I have all of the quarter points marked on my waistband. If you would like to, you can do the same thing on your cuffs. I find doing the quarter points on the cuffs just makes it a little bit too bulky and too extra to sew, so I'm not going to mark them, but if you would like to mark them, you are more than welcome to. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my quarter points on my neckline, my waistband, the bottom where the waistband is going to go, and my hood. That way it makes everything easier to attach and everything lines up properly. So go ahead and mark your quarter points on the neckline, the waist, and the hood. Okay, all of my quarter points are marked on all of my pieces. It's completely up to you if you would like to add the band with the bodice right sides out. I find it easiest to do it wrong sides out and put the bands inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn mine wrong sides out. I'm going to start with my waistband. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my waistband and I'm just going to match up my quarter points. I have my quarter points all matched up on my waistband, so I'm going to do the same thing for my cuffs. Now for the cuffs, I'm going to go ahead and match up the seam of the cuff with the seam on the sleeve. And then I match up the opposite side. I stretch it a little bit just to get it in place to find the opposite side and match up those. If you would like, you can continue and match up the quarter points just to make sure you are extra accurate. These are a little bit smaller and I feel the big clips just get in the way. So I'm only doing the 2. You are more than welcome to do the 4 if you would like. Repeat the same thing with the other sleeve. I have the same thing with this sleeve. Now for the hood. The same concept with the hood. You are going to take your quarter points for the neckline and you are going to match them up with the quarter points on the hood. Go ahead and put your hood inside, matching up the right sides of the hood with the right sides of your bodice. And then make sure to match up the back seam of the hood with the back neckline. If you are adding any tags or anything like that, this is the perfect time to add it. And just clip it in place on the neckline so you don't forget about it. I'm really good about forgetting about putting them in place if I don't clip them where they need to go. I have my hood, all of my quarter points matched up and clipped in place. I have my waistband clipped in place, and I have my cuffs clipped in place. Now I'm going to take it to my serger. You can take it to your sewing machine or your serger and sew these in place. If you would prefer, you can do each one of these steps individually. I do it all at once, that way it's less trips to the serger. But completely up to you if you would like to do one at a time or do it all together. Okay, I have my hood, my cuffs, and my waistband all sewn in place. If you would like to, you can take it to your ironing board and give the seams a good press. It'll help make it look a lot neater like I had mentioned. Turn it right sides out. And we are finished with our tamaracks.